I regularly meet with my biological mother, but she doesn't know that I'm her son. She gave birth to me at a very young age, and I was put up for adoption. Now I'm 24 years old. My adoptive parents told me about her while I was growing up. I still have a letter that she wrote to me and asked them to give me if they thought it was the right thing to do. It's so strange to read that letter and realize how young she was when she wrote it. In the letter, she apologizes for not being able to be my mom, but hopes that I'm happy. She was willing to meet me in the future, but when I turned 11, we moved due to my father's job, and finding her became almost impossible. However, I managed to find her. She now works at a small restaurant, and I visit there frequently, but she doesn't know that I'm her son. We sometimes chat, and she seems like a very pleasant person. When she addresses me with words like, "Would you like me to refill that, darling?" or uses some other endearing term, I immediately feel like telling her the truth. I don't know why, but it makes me feel so anxious. Sometimes, if there aren't too many people at the restaurant, we chat and she willingly tells me all kinds of things. I literally drive 2 hours just to eat there and see her. She seems to be starting to recognize me since I've been coming there once or twice a week for the past 3 months. She always greets me with a big smile. Oh my God, if only she knew. Update. Well, I finally confessed to her. And yes, it was very hard. My heart was pounding, and I kept thinking about how to tell her. Many people in the comments of my previous posts suggested I write her a letter, just like she did for me. I initially wanted to do that, but I ended up realizing I needed to say it out loud. A huge thank you to everyone for your warm words and support, especially to the parents who shared their stories. It really helped me gather the courage to open up to her. This was really important to me. Thank you all. It happened the day before yesterday. I waited until her shift ended when they were closing the restaurant. I waited in the parking lot. She was the first to notice me. We greeted each other, and I told her I had something important to tell her. At first, I apologized for keeping this secret for so long. She didn't understand until I pulled out her letter. In that moment, she started crying uncontrollably. She was literally both screaming and sobbing at the same time. I didn't even need to say, "I'm your son." She understood everything when she saw the letter. It was incredibly emotional. The next thing I remember, she was hugging me. Then she pulled back slightly and asked if I minded if she hugged me. Of course, I didn't mind. We hugged again and cried right there in the parking lot. She literally almost collapsed, and I held her until she calmed down. What moved me the most was what she said. "Look how big you've grown." Seeing her sobbing, I started crying too. Then she insisted we go back to the restaurant. She wouldn't take no for an answer. We sat down, had coffee, ate some cake, and talked for a long time. We talked about so much. She told me that after my second visit to the restaurant, she had a kind of premonition. But it seemed so unbelievable that she tried to push the thought away. The thing is, after years of me being put up for adoption, she often saw children my age and imagined that it was me. She would often cry in public. It really depressed her, so when she saw me at the restaurant, she decided not to overthink it again. She said I look very much like my biological father did when he was young. We also talked about him. It turns out that they had stayed in touch in case I decided to find them, so that one of them could inform the other. I wasn't hoping to find my biological father, because almost no one ever mentioned him. But apparently, they both were preparing for such a turn of events. My mom said they wanted to keep me, especially my father. He didn't want me to be put up for adoption. But they were both very young and understood that it would be better this way. He couldn't come to terms with the fact that they were taking me away, so he didn't leave any farewell letters. He couldn't believe that he might never see me again. We talked until 2 a.m., even though the restaurant closed at 11. It was important for her to know if I was happy, how my adoptive parents treated me, if they were kind to me. I told her that I had a wonderful childhood, and thanked her for giving me a chance at life. We both cried again, and she cried even harder. Her emotions were all over the place. One moment she was happy, and the next she was sad. She really hoped that after I turned 18, I would find her. So she continued to live in the same city. But since I never showed up, she thought that maybe I was angry with her. Either I was told that I was adopted, or I decided not to contact her. I felt ashamed that I hadn't told her sooner, but she comforted me, saying that it wasn't my fault, and that I had done everything in my own calm way. She was so kind, looking at me with a big smile, and it really touched me. It's amazing how a person you've never known your whole life can look at you with such love. I'm just in shock. We learned a lot about each other. She asked if we could have dinner sometime soon, to continue the conversation, and maybe I could visit her sometime, and she would introduce me to her husband. That sounds great. We exchanged numbers. When I left, she sent a message thanking me for giving her a feeling she wasn't sure she would ever get. My girlfriend, seeing me cry, hugged me tightly. I wasn't sad. They were tears of joy. Everything went better than I expected. Yes, it was still a very emotional experience, but I'm so happy that we opened up to each other.